Welcome back, guys. I'm right here for Magic Coding, and in this video we're gonna look at what is a constructor. So when you want to create a player object, you will say player, then you're gonna name it warrior equals to new player, open close parentheses and semicolon. And as you know, this over here, this over here is called construct. Now first, let me explain why do we need this and now what it is. So for example, if you want to see the warrior specification, you'll see warrior dot player info. I almost forgot the function name. And then you will see the warrior player info as we saw before. But if you want to create a player mage equals to new player, then you will have to change the aspect because the default one is warrior and health is 200. So in this video is where do we get this construct? I'm gonna tell you to look at it like this. By default, when you create a public class player, you get a public player, open close parentheses, like what's this called? A construct again. Now this is not a function, it doesn't have void, but you can look at it like a function. As you can see, one reference, and as soon as let's say for example, put this in a comment, save it, 0 reference will show up. So when you call just your player, you're gonna call this over here. You can put here anything you want. For example, I can put here player info by default, and when you call a player warrior, a new player, if I go back to Unity, click play, you're gonna see it's gonna be called immediately. So this is, you can look at it like a default function that you can add on. I can change maybe the role. I can say the role equals to mage, semicolon, health equals to 100, and then I call player info. If I click play, you're gonna see that we're gonna have a mage immediately. Now it's kind of the way of adding it here, but you're just doing it over here. But why did I mention this is, if you remember, we have 4 types of functions. I almost said voids. 4 types of functions that we use. So what can we do is we can create a public player, and then we can have here our string role, and we can have our float health like this and open curly bracket. Now this will work, and I can call my player info. For example, I can say here player info. I can call it up. But now, even though if I call it, for example, if I say here, I'm gonna call it the mage because our warrior is the default one, so mage, and I'm gonna add here a string mage, and I'm gonna add health 150, and immediately you can see we have the string role and float health. But one thing I want to mention before we move on is if you leave it like this, so let's say warrior, and I delete this, but you delete this one over here, you don't have it, but you created this one, I'm not sure you're gonna get an error. Let me see. Yep, you're gonna get an error because the default one right now is over here because you have added it on your own. If you don't have it, it's gonna work, but this now will not work over here, but this one will work. So if you want to use both of them, if you need them, then you're gonna type them out in your script. Now, adding the string role and float like this will not do anything. What do we need is we need this role. So just to differentiate stuff, I'm gonna add underscore, and we have to say this dot role. This is not necessary, but it's a lot easier when you read it. So this referring to this player, meaning to this role, equals to underscore role. So this will mean the role that we add onto this player will be this role over here. So for example, let me add this dot health to be equal to health and semicolon and call my player info, not health but underscore health. So just so you can different stuff so you don't get confused by the same name, but 100% of the time in my courses I'm using the same name because there is no need to use underscore, but you can use it. So right now you can see if I click play, we are gonna see the role of the mage. Okay, we have 2. Let me see what's going on here. Okay, I'm gonna remove the warrior, but you can see if I called out just the mage, we're getting the mage part. As you can see here, it's immediately added and we can see it. But if I remove this part over here for the role and the health, we are just gonna get the default warrior. So if I click play right now, you're gonna see default warrior specifications. So it's necessary to add this over here. So I can just remove underscore not insert, but remove underscore like this, and we can leave it. As you can see, if I just click on it, it's gonna highlight this role over here. So as you can see in the parentheses, it's a parameter. It's not this one over here. It's not like from the real string. I'm gonna call it a real string from the player, but it's a parameter that we're gonna add on, and then immediately we can add player info. Also, you can add just the string role, just the health. You can add anything you want. You can just add the player info as you saw before, but it's a lot easier to create maybe a mage like this. You can create our not archer, but hunter, so equals to new player, and I can call it hunter, which will have 100 HP. It's a lot easier just to call it like this by adding parentheses than actually having, for example, player. What else? Rogue, my bad, new player, and then changing the specification inside, so rogue dot new player, and not a full column but semicolon, and then saying rogue dot role equals to rogue, and so on and so forth. It's a lot easier like this, and it's a lot more readable. I mean, it's easier, and it's there's just no need to not do it. But as I was saying, you're gonna look at this construct as a default function of the player class. So this, when you call it an object, you can have a default function for it. Now, this only refers to class, as I know, but you can test it later on if something else pops up in your mind. So, of course, this is not the default one, this is the default one, but you can add onto it. If you add onto it, make sure you have the default one if you really need it. So yeah guys, that will be it for this quick tip. Hope you like it, and I will see you in the next video.